A very warm welcome to IDFC First Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. I'm Ritwika Gupta. Now, global trade is undergoing transformative shifts and India is increasingly making its mark as a key player with robust growth in exports, imports and international collaborations. As we look ahead to 2025, tonight we will spotlight the overall global trade landscape and opportunities for India. On the show tonight, I'll be in conversation with John E. Drew, Chairman, World Trade Center Association, to discuss WTCA's role in connecting businesses worldwide, its support for India's trade ambitions and initiatives empowering MSMEs. Listen in. I'm now joined live by John E. Drew, Chairman, WTCA, all the way from Boston. A very good morning to you, John, and thank you so much for joining us today on ET Now Leaders of Tomorrow.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Now, John, to kickstart the conversation, the global economy is underperforming because of tight monetary policies, weaker global trade, and geopolitical tensions. So, as a big picture, how would you describe the current state of the global trade market?
I think the best way I would describe it is uncertain right now. There seems to be a lot of industries and companies and even countries that are debating sort of what the next steps are going to be and whether or not there will be more restrictive tariffs or whether or not there's sort of what government policies are going to be like. I think there's also still in the West here in the States, there's still a tremendous issue with commercial real estate where since COVID, many of the people who were in offices have stayed home, working from home, in offices only a few days a week. So that's affected our market on the real estate side. I do know on the, if you look at the World Trade Organization, they're expecting growth.
Right.
And they're generally pretty careful about their analysis. So I believe if they're expecting some growth next year, there will be. I think still how we manage to finally step out of COVID and back to what will become the new norm, I think is something that here in the States we have to worry about. I think in India and other parts of the world, I think the question is just open markets for your goods and or not, and how that's going to affect your production and output. So I believe in 6 months, 6 months, there'll be the answers will be much clearer. And I think right now we're in that stage between certainly elections in this country and in other parts of the world, and new governments stepping in.
Sure.
So again, I think we're in an in-between spot right now where there's uncertainty.
Right. So tell us then, what are some factors that have helped WTCA become a strong enabler in the trade sector? How are you connecting businesses globally on such a large scale, spanning over 300 locations and nearly 100 countries?
I think we have a very simple idea about how to help business. And it's in our reciprocity. When you become a World Trade Center member, you take on some responsibilities. One is that the responsibility that I feel is most important is that my World Trade Center is able to reach out to your trade center.
Okay.
And get a response to inquiries that my members may have about doing business in India or in other parts of the world. And that reciprocal response is key to our success. Having someone that's trustworthy, and we make sure when you become a World Trade Center now that you have a good background check and whatnot, that you are trustworthy.
Sure.
So that you can have basically confidence in who you're talking to and know that the other World Trade Center team is going to be as helpful as they can be in facilitating your ability to do business abroad or to answer questions about the economic climate in a certain area, certain province, certain city. So that by itself is kind of the secret, I think, in our success.
Sure.
Which is not surprising. I mean, if you think about good business is mostly conducted, I think, with people who develop that kind of confidence in one another. Along with the creation of the World Trade Center in a certain area, we're expecting that you will, in fact, develop trade services, a trade service program that the local trade center will be working closely with its Chamber of Commerce or with its government offices to facilitate ease of doing business. We also look at the development of a building as part of our program so that trade center services have a location that is visible and well-known in their area. And it brings, hopefully, the ability of companies and groups that are interested in international trade together in an easy place where they can meet and work with one another. So it's that mixture of physicality coming together, collegial business relationships and trust that has been the key to our success.
Now, John, speaking of India, India has witnessed impressive growth in both exports and imports recently. How do you view the Indian economy today on the global stage?
I've said a number of times that when I'm so impressed with my recent experiences in India. I was there a number of years ago. I was back there again last year. And the transformation is striking. The growth is striking. But what I do also know and have known for quite some time is that the Indian educational program that brings about, I think, some very, very well-educated, talented people who have basically worked in the U.S. and worked in Europe and other parts of the world very, very effectively, are now back in India in large numbers in building that Indian economy. So you have well-educated people, very committed people,
right?
And I think the ability to in fact expand on that very easily because of the schools and the population that you have. So I have great confidence in the Indian economy and where it's going. It's third largest in the world now, and it's going to continue to grow. I think if you look at the status of our members in India and their programs that they're putting forth, their programs are in science, they're in medicine, they're in traditional business, airport related and import related. So you see a wide, basically, base of interest in India, and I think that reflects the Indian economy. I think the Indian economy is deepening and broadening, and I think the other part is, quite frankly, Indian products are being sought after in other parts of the world. So the world market's opening for India, and vice versa. The Indian market seems to be inviting in companies from other parts of the world to locate in India and work in India and grow in India. So I think that all tells me, at least, that you have all the right things in place to grow and expand, and you have the right. I think the commitment there on the individual side, on the personality of the country, is extremely positive.
Fantastic. Now, the recent election of Donald Trump as U.S. president will have implications for global trade. How might this shift create both new opportunities and challenges for countries like India?
Well, the first term with President Trump was actually a good term for India, in the sense that, quite frankly, his administration seemed to have opened up more business with Indian companies for the U.S. and vice versa. So I presume it's going to be more of the same. That the Indian-U.S. relationship is actually going to be a very strong relationship.
Okay.
I think his election speaks to the fact that many Americans, especially in blue-collar jobs, are expecting that their industries will grow and rebound in energy and manufacturing. So there's some clashes there where products from other parts of the world are coming into the States and replacing those products that were once made in the States. So there's a balancing piece there, an adjustment piece that is going to be, it's going to have fits and starts. But I think at the end of the day, you're going to find a very strong relationship between the U.S. and India growing in the next few years, in this next term. In addition to that, again, not to be understated, the presence of Indian people in the U.S. In growing numbers,
Right.
and quite honestly, the presence of in our universities and schools and has made a phenomenal impact. If you look at major American companies, many of them are run by Indian nationals, and who are doing a phenomenal job, let's say. But I think the other side is that relationship at a university level
Sure.
between us is very, very healthy. And I think that builds very strong personal relations, and that turns into good government relations. So I feel that the Indian situation is going to be a good one.
And it's time for a quick break here. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12 in conversation with John E. Drew, Chairman, World Trade Center Association. In this segment, we also discuss the role of technology and how WTCA is empowering MSMEs to participate in global trade. So with 41 World Trade Center licensee in India, what role would you say WTCA plays in supporting Indian businesses in fostering international trade opportunities?
The Trade Center group over there is committed to continuing to grow in that area and committed services to supporting Indian business and helping Indian business expand overseas. So I see that there's no Mumbai is one of our, if not one of our first members. It's certainly one of our second members to come in. So the relationship with India has been a historic 55-year-old relationship with the association, and the leadership that comes out of India to us has been very, very important on the board and elsewhere. So there's a broadening of speciality. There's a broadening of knowledge that's coming into the World Trade Center family through our Indian members. The other piece I must stress is that our Indian members do have an opportunity
Sure.
To work more closely together, because some of them are so new into the association. So their participation has been extremely important for us to learn more about India by coming. For example, we just had a meeting in New York. We had representatives from the Indian World Trade Center group. Very knowledgeable, again, very central to the meeting and to the exchange of information that was going on in New York. So I see that in some cases that youth, that vibrance, that the newness being a spark to help our other trade centers learn more about India and do business in India. It's just natural. New people, committed people who have strong goals that they represent can be infectious. They help us basically strengthen our membership and share ideas. So my Indian members are a very, very energetic, strong group and very professional group of people. So we're very happy to have these new trade centers in India, and we expect to grow them even further.
Right. And in your perspective, and also from WTCA's perspective, what steps can India take to further enhance its presence on the global stage?
The world needs to know more about that Indian attitude, of business attitude, and I think that greater participation in international meetings, in exhibitions in certain industries of Indian product, I think right now would be very, very timely and a very good thing to do, because the quality is there, quite frankly. And I think the rest of the world learning
Sure.
more about you, I think, is part of the program that you have to encourage. Just being more visible in a number of these events, talking about yourself in I think in a very proud way, but in an accurate way, and about just the attitude that the Indian government, the Indian states have about bringing in business, I think is extremely important thing to stress. I think in addition to that, the other piece that I see is that, you've been well represented, as I said, by students coming out, coming to Europe, coming to the States, and coming to other parts of the world. I think that program of encouraging some of your younger people to spend some time abroad and attend universities or spend some time abroad just visiting other places is going to be extremely helpful, because that face-to-face, one-to-one relationship, it's very hard to do and it's very slow to grow. But I tell you, it can make an extremely complicated problem very simple if you know someone and you've met someone who can tell you more about themselves and more about their country. So that exposure, I think, is there. And you have the ability to do that economically more easily than ever before. So I would encourage you to continue to do that as a building block.
With digital transformation reshaping trade dynamics, how is WTCA leveraging technology? Are there specific initiatives that you have in place supporting digital trade or e-commerce in India?
Yes, we do have that. And I'll tell you, we are learning as we go along. The B2B platforms, we've used 2 of them, and we're working on still another B2B platform to make it easier for businesses to work through the World Trade Center platform. Also, AI and simple things like translation for us is important. So we're working very strenuously and hard on that. It's interesting.
Sure.
There's knowledge in the association that can facilitate that very, very easily. We've got to bring that forth. And we've set up a digital committee of the board now, the membership to, in fact, instruct us and our team at headquarters on how best to use these platforms. It's a technology that's rapidly changing. And honestly, it's a technology where the expertise is generally found more in younger people who are more adept at using the technology. So we're reaching out as fast as we can to try to get that knowledge base shared with our team.
Now, small businesses form the backbone of most economies. How does the WTCA help empower MSMEs in India to participate in global trade?
It's a nice way of building upon local knowledge and providing smaller businesses in I think a very comfortable, safe, easy way to get their questions answered so that they can in fact begin to shape their own business planning, so that they can in fact move into an overseas programming and sales.
Right.
So the jump from local to international seems so natural today when it was so unusual 40 years ago. I think getting knowledge about the marketplace and also who can represent you effectively when you bring your product out of your area to an overseas market, how you want to go about doing that. That's a very tedious and it can be a very expensive process. I think we can facilitate that and make it far, far easier for our members to learn that. They have to specialize after that. We can't sort of but I do think that coming through the portal of learning and getting your feet beneath you and knowing what you should be doing or what you must be doing, I think is more easily done in the World Trade Center association environment than it is elsewhere.
Right. And finally, tell us, what are WTCA's strategic goals for the coming years, especially in the context of India? And how do you see WTCA's role evolving or playing a bigger part in connecting businesses globally?
Every year, as part of our business planning process, and during all of our meetings, we're hearing from the regions as to what their needs are and what they see as their growth projections, and how we should adapt what we're doing in such a way that brings support and hopefully success to our regions and to our members. So we've changed our structure in such a way it is not as much top down, it's much more region up. And so our business planning, I think, is beginning to reflect that more each and every year. That I think makes a very big difference. I think the other part is, quite frankly, motivation is something that the more I've worked with the association, the more I work with my own business, I can't overstate how important motivation is, and pride in what you're doing is in pushing forward your products, your company, or your area.
Right.
I think that motivation of moving, growing, expanding is something that that Indians can count on moving them forward There's no fatigue there. There's an attitude that they are just beginning to grow and they can continue to grow.
Yeah.
I'm very pleased with the growth that we're seeing in India. I'm very pleased with what that growth has meant to us and the quality of the participation, the leadership the association's getting from Indian members is excellent. So it's good for our association. I hope it means very, very good things for India and its growth. But I know, quite frankly, the attitude of the association is going to be looking more and more towards Asia, Southeast Asia, India in particular, for our growth in and also from our leadership. So I have a very positive attitude about my experience there, and I'm hoping that the next few years go by with positive changes and not too much controversy. And if that's the case, I think we'll come out in a good spot.
Well, it was an absolute pleasure speaking to you, John, hearing your insights and gaining such a comprehensive overview of the global trade industry. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much. I hope this was useful.
With that, it's a wrap on this episode of IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.